Welcome to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is exploring data with graphs and numerical summaries, and I've broken this up in two parts. We're going to do part 1 in this series of videos, and then we'll do part 2. Okay, so in part 1 of part 2, Chapter 2, we're going to do types of data, tables, and graphs. So there's different types of data. Just want to remind you before we get too far, you should have had the outline notes ready while you're listening to this and taking notes. So the different types of data are variable, observations. So variable is any characteristics we observe in a study, and observation is the values we record for the variable, and these could be numbers or a category. Okay, here's example 1. This is about 2016 USC football season, and you see the spreadsheets style of data where you have the columns and rows. So the columns are the names like game ID, month game was played, whereas rows have the game IDs 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So you should get used to looking at datasets like this all the time. Alright, question number 1, just like an exam question or homework question. Identify 2 variables and 2 observations in the above data set. So the variables are always the columns. So examples of variables could be number of points opponent scored, total offense, yards, or punts. So just note that variables are generally the columns, and observations will be the cell numbers under columns. So it could be observation in September. We had Tennessee. I'm sorry, it was October, not September, which would be number 8. Okay, so this is incorrect. I'll fix that. Alright, so it could be any of those rows, right? So it could be month of September, month of October, month of November, right? It could be opponent, which opponent they played, or it could be, is this a conference or out of conference game, which is column number 4. Okay, so I'm hoping you get the idea. The rows are the observations. Just like you go to the doctor's office, they take height, weight, blood pressure, and those are the rows, right? So the different patients, different numbers, and the variables will be the columns, blood pressure or height or weight. Okay, so we're going to discuss two different types of variable. One is categorical. Categorical variables are where each observation belongs to one set of distinct categories. For example, it could be gender, could be yes or no responses. For example, do you drive to school, or do you walk to school, or do you get a ride? Okay, so there will be more categories there, but generally we have set of distinct categories. Okay, quantitative variables are those that take a numerical value and that will represent different magnitudes of the variable. So measurement of counts will be one. For example, number of siblings, number of vehicles of your household, number of people in your household, income, age, those. Just know that not all numbers are quantitative. I'm going to give you some examples coming up. Numbers that are not quantitative are like phone numbers and zip code. Even though 29205 is a number, it does not have the same qualities as a quantitative. It's actually a category because it's the area. Same with the phone number. 8035156768 is not 1 less than 6769. So those are not quantitative even though they're numbers. Okay, so again, quantitative variables could be placed into 2 different subgroups. All right, and now you're welcome to stop my video and go back, and if you don't understand something, you can pause and replay and all that. So one type subgroup is discrete. These are the quantitative variables where possible values form a set of separate numbers. For example, outcomes, accounts, key phrase, the number of siblings you have. These are quantitative, but they're discrete, meaning you cannot have decimals and fractions. For example, if I ask you how many siblings you have, you might say 2, 3, or 1. You're not going to say 1.5, right? So the outcomes are counts, 0, 1, 2, 3, they're whole numbers, finite numbers of possible values, and no decimals or fractions allowed. Continuous quantity variables are those variables where the possible values form an interval. For example, I'm going to give you examples in a minute, but the outcomes are measurements, there's infinite number of possible values, and decimals are allowed but not required. Okay, so let me go back and give you examples of some continuous. So if you're asked how many miles did you drive to campus today, or how many miles did you walk to campus, you might have walked 1 mile, but your friend might have walked 1.1 miles. So decimals are allowed, right, just like I said, but not required. So that's the example of continuous. So you might be thinking, what can I ask you on exams and homework? I'll give you a scenario. You gotta categorize as categorical or quantitative. So next we try on how to figure this out. So if you have values of the variable numbers and then the answer is no, then they're categorical. But if the answer is yes, then you have to ask another question. Would the average of all the values be meaningful? Is the variable a measurement or a count? If the answer is no, then it's categorical. If the answer is yes, then it's quantitative. I'm sorry, my arrows are kind of off. Okay. For numbers, there are numbers, but you cannot take everywhere for numbers and calculate the average. This wouldn't be meaningful. Just like zip code, right? But if you take GPA, you can average it. Or you can take the income of 20 students or their household incomes, you can average it. So that would be quantitative. All right. Furthermore, if the values contain a decimal, just note that all values contain a decimal, but could not any value contain a decimal. So if the answer is yes, it's continuous. The answer is no, it's discrete, right? That's the value of the quantitatives. Option 2. Are you counting the numbers of something, or is the value a measurement? So counting the number of something or measuring something, when you're counting the number of something, that's discrete. And if you're measuring something, that is continuous, like height, right? Height is, you could be 5 feet 6 inches tall, or 6 foot 1 inches tall, or it could be exactly 6 feet, right? But if you're counting the number of your classmates, it's not going to be 72.5. It has to be 72 or 73. Okay, so here's an example. Typical test question. Identify the variable type. And we're going to identify them as categorical or quantitative. And if it's quantitative, we're going to state if it's discrete or continuous. Number of pets in the family. Well, I hope the answer is a number, right? So that is quantitative. Now, does it make sense to average these numbers? No, it doesn't. So it's discrete, right? So you either have 1 pet or 2 pets or 5 pets or 9, right? County of residence. This county USC is Richland County or Lexington County, whatever the county is. So this will be categorical. It doesn't make sense to average Richland County with Lexington County or Kershaw County. Choice of auto to buy. Are you going to buy a domestic or an import? This is also categorical. Distance of commute to work or school. What do you think? Yeah, you could drive exactly 5 kilometers or 5.1 kilometers. So that will be continuous quantitative. Social security number doesn't make are the number? Yes, they're number, but does it make any sense to add them up and average them? It doesn't. So that will be categorical. Number of people you have dated in the past month, and that is discrete quantitative. Hopefully not 1.5, right? Weight of a dog, that would be continuous quantitative.